it's like, it's pretty bad out there, you know. No one ever thought this would ever happen here.
And with large piles of snow still to melt, the debris-filled floodwater will be here for some time to come. The president spent several hours talking with the people who are staying in the huge emergency shelter that's set up at the Air Force Base about 15 miles out of town. The president promised to try to get all the federal help that he can. In Grand Forks, North Dakota, I'm Terry Daniels, NBC Nightside.
And looking for someone to help them do it. That someone arrived Tuesday in a very large airplane.
I don't like to say this, but I don't think a lot of these people think it's going to make a difference that he came.
We checked in with Joanne Crooksey. She's been helping us try and understand the life of an evacuee.
And I would like to see him do something that does make him realize he has done something that's going to make a difference.
We can order these things before the water and sewer back on so that they happen together. That's what I'm trying to say. And that can save people at least a couple of weeks. And I know right now, any day, people save income.
Apparently, he did. The Dahl family is flooded out of house, work, and school.
We don't know when we're going to get back in. You know, financially, we basically got out with the
Here's where 8th Avenue South starts to dip, ultimately behind the dikes that ran along the river. As we're looking at the homes, and you can see their elevation is slightly lower than the ones we just passed.
We had to be careful in these areas. Still power lines hanging low in some parts. You'll see that just in a little bit here. No power to that area, but still, when you're seeing power lines hanging 2 or 3, 4 feet off the top of the road, you know the water is very deep. And then we just worked our way back into an area that we could not continue to go down, but you can see the houses in very rough shape in this neighborhood. This is the worst of what we saw today. In what ended up being about an hour tour, we shot almost 60 minutes of tape that we hope to bring you. And as I say, we may not be able to narrate it all because of other needs, but as we've been doing much of the day, we were able to get some East Grand Forks video on, which was brought to us by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, one of their people, and FEMA, just incredible at providing information in these sorts of disaster situations. One of the reasons they wanted to keep us on the air was in order to bring you these pictures, and sometimes they don't need narration. You know your neighborhood, and so we may end up after we see some of that Lincoln Drive area, then maybe we'll pause for a bit. We believe that was just a topper that was floating free of a pickup. Not sure that pickup is that deep right there. That wasn't that deep a part of the road. So we're actually going to head down that way. I believe those homes we looked at just a moment ago was that area where was the end of Lamarck Avenue just a moment ago. We're taking a left and we're heading down Euclid, and that's this is where just an unbelievable amount of devastation. Power lines, as you can see, just barely above the top of the water, 2 or 3 feet.
This was, I believe, the first area in the city of Grand Forks that had been subject to a mandatory evacuation notice, Milo.
Yeah, when the water finally did come, it poured over the top of the dike near the golf course. The golf course filled up and dumped to the north, and these areas were taking on water fairly quickly on Friday.
If there was ever doubt about the power of water in motion, images such as this should dispel that.
As the city has said, and some federal officials have said, some people may not be able to rebuild in these areas. The federal government may just come in and say no. It all depends, I guess, on what we see when the water goes down and what the final decision was on whether these sorts of things can be prevented in the future. There, obviously, that home is floating off its foundation, tilted to its side, several homes in that area in the same shape. This is coming back up behind Almonte Valley Memorial Home, a 3-story building just off to the right.
It was evacuated early that morning. It was that Friday morning, Milo? I forget.
I believe so. They got those people out of there very quickly, and I believe some of the people, they operate 3 homes throughout the area, if I'm not mistaken, and some of those people were in a story we did up in Thief River Falls, if I'm not mistaken. Tracy Kempert's package, were those people from Valley?
Well, no, I think
those
they
may
were
have
Good
been
Samaritan.
Oh, Good Samaritan.
Good Samaritan of East Grand Forks.
Yeah, this is coming around the front side of Valley Memorial Home. I will say, as we, I guess that might be considered the front of that building, certainly in the downtown area, and people I keep saying, well, they don't want to see the downtown area anymore. There are new things to see downtown. We didn't spend a lot of time down there, but they are knocking down the walls. You'll also see, as we get to that area, an incredible, the cranes, the scoops that they're using to knock down walls. One of them fell through what must have been, fell through the basement floor. Must have been a very scary experience for the operator this morning or last night, whenever that mishap occurred. But
there's been a great cry for video of the Riverside Drive area, Riverside Park. One of the reasons there hasn't been a lot of video from that area is we're driving north on Reeves Drive. One of the reasons that we've been told is the railroad tracks that act as sort of a obstacle for watercraft trying to get over there.
Right, they say it's very difficult to get to that point, and then they have to get boats deployed over the top of the tracks. And frankly, the boats right now are needed where they are. They may try to do that tomorrow, and I should say that the people who took us out today were from Water Rescue, a group of volunteers whose normal task is to respond to boating accidents, to reports of drownings. They often use scuba gear as we head to take the little jog and continue to head up Reeves Drive.
One of the most scenic, historic sections, residential sections of town, Milo. Some stately homes, some of them well into the 19th century.
Surprisingly, in this area, we did see some of these homes had a little bit of grass showing around them. I'm sure that doesn't necessarily mean that the basement is dry, but considering how close they are to the river and how much water has been in some other areas very nearby, somewhat surprising. I was going to mention that Water Rescue people are now involved in several different tasks. One is to help rescue people from their homes. They've also helped out in the pet rescue, and they also are helping the local law enforcement and other agencies get back into their buildings to recover necessary items such as firearms for law enforcement, some of the things that got left behind, computer disks and diskettes containing important information about county records, whether they be law enforcement or just public records. A number of those gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, are working for the volunteer service. Some of them, our particular driver, Bo, is a Grand Forks resident. His basement's taking on water, but he is staying to help out in any way he can in this area.
What we're doing on this particular section is driving toward 4th Avenue South. As you said, Milo, ultimately we'll have a view of the water treatment plant.
We won't. I did talk to the plant manager. I guess you would call him the water plant manager. And you know what? I have his name here, and I just have to dig it up. But we can probably talk about that as we get closer. Jim Evenson had basically says that they've been trying to get into the water plant. Well, why don't we hold off on that, and I'll say it as we get closer. Just some of the most beautiful homes in this area. As has been noted on national news, there was no favorites played in this flood. Some of the more expensive homes in town, some of the smaller homes, some of the newest homes, and some of the oldest, all affected by floodwaters.
Looks like we're about to reach 4th Avenue South here.
Yes, yeah, that's 4th, and we come up and believe we, if I can remember our path, I believe we headed down Minnesota at one of these.
It looks like we're turning on east on 4th Avenue South, headed looking directly east at the moment into that Central Park neighborhood. And looking down toward the Point Bridge.
Yeah, we end up going around the block and then going down Minnesota Avenue for a bit, if I remember. They're just trying to hit as many neighborhoods as we can. We were in a very, what it is, it's a jet ski, but it's mounted on front of it, strapped in is a section that turns the jet ski into a small boat. It has pretty good clearance. Even in some areas, we were still scraping bottom. And of course, in some parts of the city on the roads, they built dikes, and sometimes you'll run into a dike that was built. Certainly, that's probably a good sign in some areas where the water is not even deep enough for this fairly shallow jet ski type boat to get through. But in most areas, we were clear to. We didn't have too many problems jumping over the railroad tracks heading to downtown. You have to pick up some speed so you get the boat a little higher up on the water, railroad tracks.
Appears to be looking north at this point, past Woodland Avenue, I believe, near Elm Avenue. I had passed earlier while you were talking River Street, where we had done one of our live newscasts, our live broadcast during our newscast, and where one of the many valiant efforts to try to hold back the water had taken place.
And we didn't get quite all the way down El Monte. Well, that's at the edge of El Monte and Lincoln Drive at the south side near the golf course is where I did a live shot, and now we're heading into the park area, and there's the warming house.
Central Park.
Look out towards the river.
More like Atlantis Park.
Very eerie to be out there, I can say. We've watched the video from in here. This is my first chance to actually go out and see it for myself. And saw the homes of friends that are thankfully only taking on water into the basements. And then we saw some devastation. You don't even need to know who those people are to feel incredibly sorry for them. Some of those houses down. And this is as we come up towards the water plant.
This looks like South 4th Street?
I believe, yes. And off to the right there, looking towards the river again, we can see some homes buried to the tops of the roofs. And I should tell the people in the control room, I'm not sure when this tape will run out. I don't know when, I can't remember when we changed tapes. I believe we got all the way to the water plant before we changed tapes, but we ran it right up to the end almost. The water treatment plant, Jim Evenson told me that he's the water plant supervisor. He says they've been in there now. They're able to take those big yellow city trucks down there. They've been in there a couple of times a day. Right now they have a group of electricians in taking a look at the damage. Obviously, Mike, the water treatment plant, an important, vital to getting the city back up and running at some point, allowing people back into the community, is whether the treatment plant is going to be able to put back in. Jim says they are anxious to get back into that area and plan on working as much as possible to around the clock if they have to. He says people are going to be coming in from all over to try and get that plant up and running again. The time frame, though, still hasn't been established as to when that might happen. So we have gone to our next tape, which was taken as we left the water treatment plant, and we're heading towards the downtown area. Again, we did not spend a lot of time in the downtown area, but there is some dramatic things to show you from the burned out area. And Mike, I can say that from this experience, it was very hard for me to get my bearings. As you know, I'm a North Dakota native, but I'd moved away, and I've only been back in Grand Forks for a year. And even though I know the downtown area fairly well, it was hard for me to get a bearing of where these buildings were and the like. But now that I've been down there, I realize exactly where they are, and it gave me a much better idea of exactly what had happened. The bank where I got my home loan, the top floor is burned out, and the second from the top looks pretty rough also. But
we just saw the courthouse where, of course, and now the temporary county seat of Grand Forks County is Larimore. And moving north on 4th Street South, passing a National Guard vehicle, you can see.
This is where we sort of, takes a little bit to get over the tracks, and the backwash kind of pushes you over. As I stated,
there's the Urban Stampede.
Urban Stampede, we've seen that a few times as we kind of cut back into some of these streets downtown for just a second to try and get a look back down towards the river.
It appears to be Kitson Avenue right now. We're nearing the City Center Mall, the Grand Forks Glass and Paint area, the
Sanders Restaurant. We're going to turn around and head farther up, continue north on the street we were just on, and you look back towards the courthouse.
You'll remember when this was still a dry area, Milo, that early morning, I believe if it was early Saturday morning, where the Grand Forks EOC, Emergency Operations Center, was beginning to move its offices as water began. I remember being down there myself. Pat Sweeney's report.
Pat was down there, and the water was coming in.
They were moving the correctional center prisoners out. And even at that point, it was hard to imagine that much water could possibly cover those streets in so short of time.
And then even at that point, I still felt, that maybe the streets would fill up to the curbs or something, and to imagine how high it ended up going. And here we look at the First Bank.
First National
Bank.
Demers looking east.
And as we come this way, you'll see a crane that's moving around. We believe it was demolishing down at the end of that street. It's going to work its way around to do some demolition in another part of the community. We kind of made two passes. We were going to try and go around it, but we decided that wasn't a good idea, so we turned around once, and then we thought, well, maybe he was stopping to let us by, so we turned around again, and then we decided that wasn't going to work. So definitely want to stay away from those people, stay out of that area and let them do their jobs. But
well, Milo, you and I were in that area just a few short weeks ago when the roof collapsed on the City Center Mall.
We thought that was a disaster, at least at the time. It seemed like a big deal for us.
Exactly.
And, we may not have run tape on the whole episode as we were decided to turn around and move back out. There's the building across the street, the First Security building.
The former Norby's department store. For years an institution in downtown Grand Forks, and become linked with the skywalk to the First National Bank building.
And we'll see that here as we turn the corner and continue to head north.
This is one of the areas where the fire skipped from the old securities building block that ultimately claimed an entire row of buildings on North 3rd Street, clear to the Grand Forks Herald Annex.
And this is us heading north again, and well, actually, we ended up turning around. That's what it is. And this was where we thought about taking a second pass at it and decided not to.
Looking again west, now at the corner.
We're going to take another pass at this to turn and go towards the...
on North 4th Street, it appears.
Yep, and we're going to go underneath that walkway, which at one point was on fire, and
They thought about, we interviewed Battalion Chief Jerry Anderson, I believe is his name, in the middle of the night. And they were very hopeful, or at least cautiously optimistic, that they'd be able to contain the fires at that point to 6 or 7 buildings.
and here's where they've knocked down the buildings in the downtown area, begun. The demolition has already taken place on those walls that were standing, a safety hazard.
The former, among other things, a popular downtown spot, Bonzer's. And there's the Federal building, and there, in fact, is the old Grand Forks Herald building in the background.
And see how high the water is on the side. It's still in that area up to the halfway up those light poles, or the stoplight poles.
Heritage Corner. We're looking toward the corner of North 3rd Street and 1st Avenue North. That's the darker brick building. That's the Dakota Hotel, the former Dakota Hotel building.
You can still see some smoldering going on in there.
And there's the most devastated of the blocks, that North 3rd Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue North. That's the remains of the security building.
Yep. This was looking to the opposite from where we were just looking. That's back behind, straight south of where that heavy equipment was operating. We're sort of spinning back around.
Looking back at their Central High School.
And Mike, I believe you probably took that message from Central, or from the public school system. I don't know if we have that directly in front of us, though, but they have called off school here for the rest of the year, but they do still plan on holding graduation on their regular dates.
Yeah, that applies not only to Central, but also to Red River High School and the, I believe, the community high school as well. No site set for the graduations. Superintendent Mark Sanford announced that this morning.
In fact, if Nate is still back at Master Control, if he ran message 23 school, it would scroll across the screen. Twisted metal still left poking up, but at least these walls are no longer standing and posing a hazard in that manner. A huge undertaking in the last 5 years or so to bring the downtown area not so much back, but to make it vital again. And a lot of people have worked hard to get that done. A lot of mom and pop operations down there, and a lot of people have not abandoned the downtown area. Some of our major banks.
Certainly it become much more than the traditional downtown, more of an office and smaller business needs area rather than a traditionally major retail area.
A lot of people living down there as well in some of the apartments
Exactly.
above these buildings, and others down there.
Much renovation downtown,
And this
more
is
restaurants.
just behind that, as he pulls out, you'll see a similar to the size of the vehicle or the equipment operating on the other side of the building, and it's buried almost, and it apparently fell through the main floor while it was working to demolish the building. And that must have been an incredibly scary experience for the operator at that point. No reports of an injury. We have not been told of one anyway. Something we'll need to find out. But that's the same style that's operating behind it. So it's a large...
Looking here, that looks like the remains of the Grand Forks Herald Annex with, there's a bit of Akers Business College was on the right side there for a moment. That's the federal building in the background, Central High School. Now we'll see the Akers Business College area. There's one of the taverns downtown.
A hub?
The hub.
There's a good burger.
And there's an example of a renovated downtown building.
The Convention and Visitors Bureau just behind our back as we head this way.
Moving north on 3rd Street North, which happens to be a one-way street toward Gateway Drive, with the river and a park area, Riverside Park area on its right. Not the Riverside Park, but a park area on the right.
See the sandbag diking that was built up along this whole stretch. As residents know, that drops off in a normal middle of summer. It's a huge drop-off down to the riverbed to even get to the edge of the river, and water almost double flood stage at this point, 26 feet above flood stage.
Again, moving north on North 3rd Street. This is north of the downtown business district in Grand Forks. Just video taken, shot just within the last few hours. Photographer Ted Peterson with Milo Smith. Simonson's Lumber.
Some of these neighborhoods that are very close to the river are, just taking on water in the basement. Obviously, higher elevations of the city, as far as being next to the river, go also to the south along Belmont. There's some fairly high levels that, in fact, we asked about Belmont, and there's certainly that lower level of Belmont where they try to build the clay dike every year. That's lower, but I guess my goal was to try to get over to see my house, but they say Belmont doesn't have enough water on it to drive through.
That's the, at least a part of the KVLY television bureau building here in Grand Forks. If you're wondering what this is, if you're watching on WDAY television in Fargo-Moorhead, we're looking at pictures of Grand Forks, north of the downtown business district. Some of the remarkable, the devastating scenes from the flood of floods.
Again, you can see spots, a tree line on a mark on the tree, a water line on the trees. It might suggest the water has fallen some, but there's any number of explanations for that, and some of them have nothing to do with the river having fallen at all.
Well, there in fact had been a report earlier, Milo, that the water was down at least a few inches.
Maybe I should say it may not mean that the water is heading down for good. I guess
That's
maybe
true.
that's how I should have stated it.
Precisely, yes.
We know how it fluctuated back and forth in Wahpeton and in Fargo for what now seems to me to be weeks, and now we worry that it'll be the same.
And certainly the battle is not over to the north, as downstream communities such as Oslo, holding its own behind, virtually surrounded by water right now, Oslo, Minnesota, an island community. And farther north, Drayton, and then Pembina. Both evacuation areas, both with residents still clinging to hopes that they can beat this water. And certainly Manitoba not immune. The communities of Emerson, St. Dominion. Small towns with terrifically high hopes that somehow their hard efforts in the past months will somehow pay off. And
coming up on the CR Cleaner building here. CNR Cleaners, I should say.
you're right, we're looking, moving north on North 5th Street, again toward Gateway Drive.
Well, I said I wasn't going to sit here and narrate, but it's just hard to pull away at times. I don't want people to lose track of where they are as we go through these communities. Obviously, if it's your neighborhood, you know for sure. But again, if you think about how many, that's looking up towards Home Economy, which we saw from the air yesterday, is very high and dry. They have high hopes of trying to open their doors as soon as possible to provide flood cleanup and emergency needs for the community.
We're still hoping to bring viewers of WDAZ, and for that matter WDAY. Many people have asked about the Riverside Drive area. As we had mentioned earlier, there have been very few video pictures of that area, and one of the explanations we received today was the fact that the railroad tracks had served as sort of a barrier, an obstacle to watercraft travel. Now we're returning, moving southeast again on North 5th Street.
I believe we're going to want to, no, I guess we're okay with this tape for a few more minutes. I believe it's about running out, but I can kind of give you the cue when to go to the next tape. Kind of making our way towards the railroad tracks that border North Washington on the east side. Just to take a look at what it looks like up there, we can tell you that there's some dry spots right across from where we're at. Darcy's Cafe doesn't have a lot of water around it. There's a little bit. There's a barber shop right up there that looks pretty dry. Ted Peterson found a little humor in that shot after he took it. The wet floor sign. This was our boat driver getting us over to that railroad. Bo Bateman is his name. He lives just off of, not too far from our station here on the east side of Washington. He says he knows he has water in his basement, but he is committed, as are the other people of the area, to there you can see across the road into that area. I think we can probably go on to the third tape as we're going to leave this area shortly and head south. And I did not keep my notes very well as we came this way. I believe we're coming down the streets that's just as we'll come up on St. Michael's Church here shortly. So whatever street that is.
St. Michael's Church, also northwest of downtown Grand Forks. Milo, just how silent did it seem passing through these neighborhoods when your watercraft had slowed down?
It's very silent, although Bo says he believes that there are still reports of people living in some of these areas. They said they kind of are becoming a security concern, maybe more so than, here we come up on St. Michael's Church from the north and from the east of it, and we'll turn in front of it. They've got some water there on the school portion or the youth center part of it. But as you can see, on the main part of this really beautiful historic church,
I understand that Father William Sherman may be, in fact, with a number of other priests in Larimore right now.
Set up to talk with, are they talking, and I'm sure they're involved in an outreach to the evacuees there. I find this shot very poignant and telling, almost as if the statue of Jesus is holding back the water from the church as it's just to the right of the main area. Fortunately, I must have been sitting right in front of what Ted's shot of that, so he never actually got it, but you can see it off there to the side somewhat. We took the corner and pretty much headed straight south from there.
Certainly, the emotional trial of this flood reaches far beyond the residents of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. Many, many people with jobs in this community, places of worship, so many services and goods. It affects a wide, wide range of people throughout the region.
One of our production staff, there was his apartment. He lives on the upper floor, I believe, so he should be dry. And he's coming back around towards Central.
Right.
The opposite side, on the west side of the Central, the swimming pool over to the left. Well, I guess the swimming pool is everywhere, although you would not want to swim in this water. The smell of fuel in the water is becoming even more powerful than the... This is the U.S. West building. Just an unbelievable story on ABC World News Tonight last night. Hope you had a chance to see it either when it broadcast there or when we used a segment of that during our late news last night. There, in a valiant effort, U.S. West to keep the phone lines going. An official from FEMA said he was amazed that the phone system was still up and running in this community given the devastation, and it's all owed to those employees who have been fighting since Saturday morning, late Friday night, to keep their offices clear of water.
The U.S. West building, not far from a more familiar landmark in downtown Grand Forks, the Civic Auditorium.
Continued to head down towards Central after we took a look at what they were doing.
Again, schools in Grand Forks, Central, Red River, closed for the remainder of the school year.
And of course, just so we don't confuse people, that's all of the schools, elementary and
right.
Everything.
That's correct.
They're encouraging you to, if you'd like to, they are going to give out grades based on what students have completed, but they certainly say you can enroll your child in another school if you want them to continue their education, but their grades will count as of now, and students who are passing will be promoted.
Interesting note, last night, Milo, a track coach at one of the high schools, said he and 4 other Red River and Central track athletes had competed in a match in North Central, North Dakota, working with the Devil's Lake squad, if I recall correctly. And he noted that maybe it seems like a small thing, but this is just one small step toward the road to recovery, one small step toward things returning to some sense of normal.
As Pat Sweeney told us last night at 6, both associations for the school athletes in Minnesota and North Dakota will decide in sports to allow, like track and field, that you can train with another school, and when you go to compete, you would compete as a Red River athlete or a Central athlete. Right. But you can train and you can go to school at that other school and still compete. Obviously, in a team sport, it would be a little different situation, and they've decided that in some of the team sports. I don't have that right in front of me, but that you would only be able to compete at the junior varsity level. But certainly for the individual sports, it's nice to know that these kids will still be out there representing Grand Forks and the schools here in our system.
Again, driving this time southeast on South 4th Street. Well,
we took the corner there.
Took the corner.
We ended up having to rescue one of the other water rescue boats that got stuck at the downtown building where the police department is at. That actually has a lot of water around it. A pretty good section of its front parking lot is dry still. I know they were starting to take on water in the basement, which is why they moved in the first place. But there's the building right there. See, there's a lot of room there. All those guard vehicles are dry, sitting up on the parking lot there. This is the back side of the building, actually, where so perhaps there is not a lot of water in there, and that building will not sustain a lot of damage. This was where we decided to help pull some of those people out. We began to run fairly short on tape in this area. I don't know if you guys can tell me how much is left on this. We did shoot to the end. That gentleman standing just to the left of your screen that you can entirely see is a reporter from the LA Times, here to cover the flood for that major West Coast newspaper. There's one of those huge trucks from the Guard able to move through the deep water. I believe I started finally to take notes again as we headed back down, so I knew where we were, although thankfully we've been able to keep track of where we are through all of this. Just again, to stress as this tape comes to an end, I believe we still have a couple of minutes left on it. Because in fact, guys, if we come up on South Middle School, we can probably, we'll be about out of tape, so we should be seeing that shortly. The news to pass along from my own perspective is that most of the homes in this area are damaged only in the basements. Very few appeared to have water up to the first floor. Until, of course, you get into that devastated area down around Lincoln Drive. Some of the homes we saw there minutes ago that were floating, tilted sideways on their foundations, most likely floated off their foundations. As we come up behind, oh yeah, I guess we do have quite a bit of tape yet. This is the United Lutheran, not quite as lucky as St. Mike's, although the water does not appear incredibly deep up around the church. Well, I'm sure the basement has taken on a lot of that water. Here I said we weren't going to narrate the tape, and we ended up narrating the whole tape almost. So, like I say, we have enough left. I know we shot up until we got around South Middle School, in which we ran out of tape, which was almost 60 minutes of tape is what we've seen here, with a couple interviews we left out that we shot to probably air later. It probably ended up being about 50 minutes of a view of some of the neighborhoods in Grand Forks that we have not seen. And earlier today we brought you video taken by FEMA over in East Grand. Quite a bit of that tape showed some of the massive devastation. And really we're to the point where some of the times we're just putting that stuff up there. It's in its raw form to shoot it all, and that's what we want to show you is the neighborhoods. Certainly, as we suggested, there are just some neighborhoods that we cannot get into because of access problems, and certainly some of these boats are involved in more important things than taking us around. Like, I got my chance to go to Target today to pick up some extra supplies of clothes and the like, and met a number of people, many of them asking if you can show my house at such and such, and fortunately today we had a little more access where we could say let's go here and let's go here. Some of those areas, if they just have water into the street, are you know, when houses are dry, these are higher priority areas for us to show because of the fact that we know there are 2 feet of water and sometimes higher in these neighborhoods. As we pass Walnut, we're heading down on 4th Avenue South. Then we're going to take the corner at some point here, yeah, and then we're heading down
It's the type of request that you wish you could somehow answer almost immediately when the caller's asking, would you please show this house, or could you try to get into this neighborhood?
The other thing to remember is that Grand Forks has hundreds of miles of streets, and when you think about it, you don't think of your community that way, but when you have a street every crisscrossing every 100 yards or less, it's an amazing amount of streets to deal with. We know that when the snow falls and it takes the snow crews are out at full force, and it does take them several hours to crisscross the entire city, and that's dealing in a dozen or more trucks. We have get access to 1 boat for an hour maybe, and there's the other water rescue boat that we had to rescue ourselves behind. And here we're heading the wrong way down the one-way. I think we are. Maybe not. Maybe we haven't turned that corner yet. Actually, I think we're okay. We're still on the one-way going south, and then we're going to turn down on, which will take us past.
As you go up and down the valley, Milo, to reflect on the different stages communities are in this whole flooding process. As you go south, you hear news today about Ada in the Oak Park area of Fargo, starting to get things back in order, or at least starting the road to recovery. Here in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, of course.
I remember being amazed about that evacuation, and percentage-wise, now we're coming up on the middle school, being amazed that they had to evacuate so many of their residents, and as it turns out, I believe we probably ended up passing that percentage between, well, obviously 100% of the people in East Grand Forks were told to leave, and a good percentage of our, on this side of the river, have also had to leave, so.
Well, I got the opportunity to drive through Ada, Minnesota twice, shortly after the first flood, and remember seeing ice 3, 4, 5 feet just hanging in clumps above poles, utility poles along the sides of houses. Just some odd Arctic flooding nightmare for those residents, and seeing the following day, seeing the enormous amounts of things taken out of homes, out of basements, out of businesses, carpets, chairs, furniture, clothing. Some of the scenes that face so many, many more people in Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, and in some other smaller communities in this part of the region, Milo.
And as we've said many times, FEMA officials who see all sorts of disasters say the flood is the worst thing to clean up after, just because of the mess that's left behind, and oftentimes the process is very draining on a community, and we have a lot of that still ahead of us. Did you have some announcements you were going to run
we
through?
should
if you're going to do that, I may take off and
get back to working on
some
the
of the
newscast.
later things. So,
again,
right.
thank you, Milo. We will be back in just a moment. You're watching on WDAZ and WDAY, continuing coverage, Flood Fight 97, the Great Flood.
WDAY-TV, Channel 6, Fargo. If you
sometimes forget things. And it's happening more often. It's not necessarily your age. Maybe you just have a lot on your mind. But it never hurts to be sure. There are people who can help. The National Institute on Aging has a booklet filled with useful information about forgetfulness and memory loss. To get your free copy, just call 1-800-438-4380. Don't forget.
Welcome back to continuing flood coverage. In some cases, post-flood coverage here on WDAZ and also on WDAY in the Fargo-Moorhead area. First, an emergency announcement for you. A Jackie Flowers is looking for Barb Fontaine to call 320-203-0733. It is an emergency, we're told. 320-203-0733. It is an emergency. The Grand Forks Post Office will be in operation starting today. Retail and box customer service will be available, including downtown boxes that have been flooded. Processing will begin this evening. All employees are to call 1-800-335-2314, 1-800-335-2314. The Grand Forks Post Office in operation again. Bergstrom Electric and ICS employees call 772-0305 and ask for David Lawson. 772-0305, ask for David Lawson. 70 apartments available for evacuees in Oak.
Many in the Grand Forks area are upset with the National Weather Service and would welcome a review. Austin Schauer reports.
Prevent the water.
And also the fire-damaged First National Bank. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The water is beginning to recede in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, revealing more of the flood's devastation.
But there are subtle signs that things may soon start to improve. Darren Selvig is in South Grand Forks tonight, where there's at least some retail activity going on. Darren?
That's right, Robin and Charlie. We spent the evening looking around here in Grand Forks to see what's going on, to see if anything is in fact open. And there are two businesses open, at least, west of I-29.
Food items, health and beauty aids, pop, a lot of pop, water, T-shirts, socks.
The Big Sioux Truck Stop is one of the only places people can buy everyday necessities. The I-29 Cafe is serving a limited menu.
We're serving our own menu. Whatever we have that day, whatever we can give, we give to the people for a low price. No water, no pop, no juice, just milk or coffee or tomato juice.
People are looking for whatever good news they can find, and there is some to report today. Floodwater dropped noticeably in the southwestern corner of Grand Forks today. City engineers credit a dike built on South Washington Street. As Neil Carlson reports, the good, the bad, and the ugly lie on either side of that street.
This dike along South Washington Street is doing its job. It stemmed the flow of water into the southwest corner of town, saving 2 schools and hundreds of homes. But east of Washington Street to the river, it's still transportation by jet ski or boat. Spirits are once again crushed with a look at the total destruction in the Lincoln Park area.
Certain areas seem to be going down and others seem to be still flowing strong and staying about the same. Yeah, we've been riding around in the water since it broke. We came out early Saturday morning. We started prepping our vehicles Friday.
Lichtenberger has one of 50,000 flood victim stories.
We helped a family evac into their Suburban and then followed them out about 3 blocks until they stalled out, and then we bailed them out of their window and got the husband and wife and the 2 teenage boys and the 3 dogs and about 10 bags out and drug them out to our staging area.
If the destruction of downtown wasn't enough, the putrid smell of sewage and fuel fills the air. And when the floodwaters touch your skin, it instantly causes burning and itching. North of downtown on 4th Street, water is still car hood high. As the water recedes, thoughts turn to the enormous amount of work that lies ahead. In Grand Forks, Neil Carlson, KVLY News 11.
No major health problems have been reported due to tainted water, but health officials say anyone working in flooded waters should wash their hands frequently. Well, the head of the Red Cross, Elizabeth Dole, saw the disaster in the streets of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, not by air but by boat today. Dole rode with North Dakota's First Lady, Nancy Jones, and Grand Forks Mayor Pat Owens. Dole says the Red Cross has had 33 shelters set up in the Dakotas and Minnesota during the recent flooding. But she says the Red Cross is hurting for money, especially because of Red River flooding and the Ohio River flooding last month. Dole is urging people to donate money as the Red Cross gets ready for yet another hurricane season. For hundreds of flood victims, Grand Forks Air Force Base is now home. It's bad enough being homeless, but what's worse is losing contact with the rest of the world. Contact like getting your mail. At the air base, that problem has been solved, though. As Mel Stone reports, flood victims lined up by the hundreds today to get their mail.
This is where the line begins.
And right now we're just doing what we can with the trays. We don't have our racks to work with. So we're getting it in the best order that we can so that when we get these people that come in for their mail, we can find it the easiest.
There's money coming, hopefully.
Money you need. It's just a catastrophe. I mean, no money, no home, no nothing. You wonder, what do you really have to come back to?
We're going to be opening up the door in a couple of minutes here. I think we need everybody to work in pairs.
Do you think your mail can actually get here?
We have no idea. We hope there'll be something. And we had time to fill.
Some semblance of normal life, I think, is important. Because you look forward to your mail every day, even if it's just mostly other stuff, junk stuff, but still, it's nice to have something.
And the runner does the ABC.
I was wondering if we could change our mail, too.
It's in Minneapolis. The only
So these people come up and they tell your name, they show an ID. How do you go about finding their mail then?
Well, we've got to sort it in two separate ways. We'll have to go back there and pick up the delivery sequence mail for those who know the routes, and then the alphabetized mail here for those who don't know the routes.
Well, we got some credit card bills, and we got a lot of junk mail. The junk mail seems to be coming through. Not much personal mail that I can see, but it'll give us something to do for a while, and we'll go through it.
The temporary post office at the base is clearly marked. Look for the sign along Highway 2 if you're driving that way and you're looking for it. Mail can be picked up in the afternoons only from noon until 5 o'clock. That's indicative of what's been happening with a number of the businesses in this area. Hugo's grocery store on South 32nd Avenue is open only during the day until 7 o'clock at night, but that is another place where people are turning to for the latest supplies and food that they need. I'm Darren Selvig reporting live in Grand Forks. Now back to you.
Darren, I understand you had a little first-hand experience tonight with the curfew that's in place. Maybe people need to be reminded of that, including us.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good idea, Charlie. We were reminded of that curfew firsthand tonight. At 8 o'clock, the city shuts down. People aren't allowed in, and we had to go through a number of hoops in order to get back here to this spot to be able to tell you about what's going on. They are providing the media with limited access, but the rest of the public isn't allowed in after 8 o'clock. As far as when they can come back in the morning, I'm not sure. I think it's 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning when that curfew is lifted again.
And that's simply for their own safety.
That's right. At night, it's really hard to see where the water is. We had to get, part of the reason why I'm leaning down here real close to the water is we had to get this close just to show you the water with our bright lights here. So a car happening to drive by on the road may not see a patch of water ahead.
I think just to be sure, I think that curfew doesn't get lifted and perhaps until 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure, but it's not real bright and early that it goes away.
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Thanks very much.
When East Grand Forks residents return to their flooded homes weeks from now, what they will see will be devastating. East Side clergymen want to be able to help them cope, so today they toured the flood-ravaged city to prepare themselves first. They've seen the damage on television, but seeing it in person is hard to swallow.
If we ever will be, to come back, what'll happen. It's our home, our church, everything's gone.
The Salvation Army has set up shop in the Crookston Winter Show building, where displaced people can pick up food and clothing from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. About 45 miles to the north, residents of Drayton, North Dakota were allowed back home to retrieve some belongings today.
That town was evacuated Tuesday morning after officials noticed a crack in the dike protecting the town from the Red River. While some returned to get things from their homes, others came back just to help out. Christy Stolhansky reports.
It's moving day for Sharon Dockin. This Drayton resident's not taking chances. If the water gets to her home, it won't get her precious belongings.
All of my girls' memories are, of course, we put in boxes in our own vans and things, but they took all the big things, and some of them were so heavy.
Because people's memories are in a lot of their furnishings and pictures and all those things.
Volunteers from nearby St. Thomas take care of the heavy stuff. Loading, stacking, and tying furniture, all headed for higher ground.
Pick up anything we can, and we're taking it back to St. Thomas area and putting it in farm buildings where there's usually farm equipment stored.
While one group of volunteers helps residents move out, others are here closer to the water, where a massive plywood wall is going up on top of the earthen dike. The wood wall stretches a good 2 miles. Individual boards nailed together form a barrier against miles and miles of water.
I think this is going to work.
Residents hope sandbags and plastic make it indestructible.
I don't know who came up with the idea. There's been a lot of talk going around and building different ways of doing it, but...
They're trying to save their community. They're working hard, but they're also maintaining the safety and integrity of the community at the same time.
Joyce Tuttle's home sits alongside what some folks call the Great Wall of Drayton. It's a kind of activity she doesn't mind.
It's going to be a mess afterwards, but if it does the trick, it's going to be worth every bit of it.
This community north of Grand Forks knows what happened upstream. That's why evacuated residents braved the dust and dirt to fight the fight. In Drayton with photographer Bruce Sundin, Christy Stolhansky, KBLY News 11.
Here are the latest river levels for the Red River at Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, slowly falling, holding around that 53.6 mark tonight. Of course, it has crested and will continue to fall very slowly. At Wahpeton, 17.7, falling to 17 by tomorrow. At Hickson, 36.03. At Fargo, 37.22 tonight, and that should fall down to about 37 by Friday. At Halstead, 39.78 with a slow fall. Drayton, 45.29, cresting at 48-49, possibly Thursday or Friday as they continue to reinforce that dike. At Pembina, 53.55, the crest 58-59, expected Sunday or Monday. The Wild Rice River at Abercrombie is 20.61 and slowly falling. The Minnesota version of the Wild Rice at Hendrum, 32.29 with a slow fall. At Valley City, the Cheyenne is at 17.1 and slowly falling. Lisbon, 18.2, may have crested and should remain below at least 19 feet. At Kindred, 20.88, little change expected. The diversion at West Fargo, last report, 22.5, little change. The Cheyenne at Harwood, a slow fall from 891.6. The Maple River at Endelin is at 10.22 with a slow fall, 13.5 at Mapleton, same thing. Buffalo River at Hawley, 791, falling below flood stage. Probably Friday. Flood stage, I believe, is 7 feet. At Dilworth, 17.1, falling slowly. And the Red Lake River at Crookston now is down to about 18 feet with a slow fall continuing. And the Marsh River at Shelley is at 23.2 with a slow fall.
You are watching KBLY News 11. There's more news coming from Fargo, Grand Forks, and the entire region.
Some homeowners in southwest Fargo think the city let them down in the flood fight. Do they have any recourse? That's next.
Closed captioning of this newscast is brought to you by Blockbuster Video.
In places where people need an air conditioner that lasts a long, long, long time, they know.
Okay, kid, run up and see if anybody's home.
It's hard to stop a train.
Get up to $400 in quick savings rebate checks when you buy a qualifying Train system from Prue Refrigeration, Heating, and Appliance, serving Crookston and the surrounding area. Or consult your Yellow Pages for the dealer nearest you.
It's spring, and the Toyota smiles are blossoming. Now is the perfect time to get out in a new Toyota.
This is the fifth Toyota that we've had. I think it's easy to be loyal to Toyota because it is a quality product. It's priced right. It's just an excellent vehicle.
And with the savings you'll find on the 97 Camrys, it's going to be one beautiful way to get around.
We saw the 97 and just absolutely fell in love with the new redesign. This has been a great car.
Come on, smile. See your Toyota dealer today.
The Lighthouse and Regency make choosing the right ceiling fan for your home or business a breeze. Take advantage of the third off Regency fan sale at the Lighthouse. Regency ceiling fans work in concert with your home's heating and cooling system to make you comfortable all day. Easy to install and quiet, Regency fans add beauty and elegance to your room. The third off Regency fan sale will save money and enhance the look of your home or business. Check out the Regency fans at the Lighthouse in Bismarck, Fargo, and Grand Forks. This week at World's Greatest Deals. Get incredible savings on JVC's dual cassette CD boombox with detachable speakers, $129. Get Farberware convection toaster ovens to $69. Find 3 styles of luggage such as carry-ons, leather carry-ons, and garment bags, your choice, $19. Brand name Farberware Millennium electric skillets, just $39. You'll find savings throughout the store. Closeouts, overstocks, manufacturer's clearance, and catalog returns. Quantities are limited. Hurry to World's Greatest Deals, Holiday Mall Moorhead and East Grand Forks, and Gateway Mall Bismarck.
Wreckage found on a sheer, snowy Rocky Mountain peak is all that's left of a warplane that disappeared on a training flight. Pieces recovered from the site have been identified as coming from Captain Craig Button's A-10 Thunderbolt. There is no sign of Button. 2 pararescue teams have been dropped on the mountain to look for remains. The U.S. Senate began debating the chemical weapons treaty today. It would
Library books are just about the only items at Oak Grove School that didn't fall victim to floodwater.
Oh boy, the Badlands.
So today, in an effort to salvage what they could, students from Hillcrest Academy in Fergus Falls helped log and load the books onto trucks.
We want to be able to help them because we don't have this type of problem in our city, so we want to come help them out.
But much of the school's campus didn't stay as dry as the library. The gymnasium floor couldn't withstand the continuous moisture and buckled.
We still are flirting with disaster here.
Even though cleanup has started at Oak Grove, Fargo's mayor is warning the rest of the city against moving too quickly.
If we were to get a 2-inch rain or some other thing might happen, we would have big problems. So we just implore everybody to not think about taking down any sandbag dikes around their homes or along the river for at least another week.
Today's efforts are just the beginning of a long spring cleanup, one that will mean replacing and restoring much of the school.
Oak Grove Junior High School students are attending classes at Trinity Lutheran Church in Moorhead, and the senior high students are going to school on the Concordia campus.
They'll have it all to themselves in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
School will be out of Concordia, so that helps to have a place to go.
As the Oak Grove president said, Oak Grove goes to college.
Yeah, high school to college.
A preview of college.
It's a good experience for them, sure.
Better believe it. Well, Mother Nature threw us a curveball today. How about that?
Yeah, that brief shower.
Faked me out. Ooh.
But then it went away.
In charge. It's away.
Yeah.
And it's away for a while now.
Good.
I said that last night, but I mean it even now. You can take a look at the USA radar, and, well, the biggest activity in Florida, a couple of tornadoes down there, but our rain area is shrinking. I'll tell you the rest next.
The starting point for homeowners, renters, business owners, workers, and others whose lives have been affected by the wrath of Mother Nature. When you call, be ready to tell them how you were hurt by the natural disaster and how to get a hold of you. FEMA officials also say callers should keep trying until all of their needs are met.
I really want people to understand that we are on their side. We want to help. And at times it may feel frustrating, and we're there for you. Keep calling back on the helpline. You should either get the help you think you need, or you should get an answer that explains why that isn't appropriate.
FEMA's disaster assistance number is 1-800-462-9029. Kepner says FEMA loans and grants are not substitutes for flood insurance. They provide victims of natural disasters with essentials to get started in the recovery process.
Here are tonight's flood-related announcements. American Crystal Sugar employees in East Grand Forks should call 218-773-5109. Drayton employees 454-3326 for flood-related or return-to-work questions. A reminder for everyone up and down the valley, boats should slow down around dikes. They cause too much wave action when they speed by. The shelter in Hillsborough has plenty of room. Flood victims should register at the Hillsborough Fire Hall. Daycare and pet kennels are available. Anyone with questions should call the Sheriff's Office at 436-4510 or the Fire Hall at 436-5476. All Grand Forks Public School employees are asked to call Twining School at 701-746-2435 to give them your location, 746-2435. East Grand Forks school personnel have 3 numbers to call to let district officials know of their location: 218-435-6949, 218-435-1475, or 435-1898.
All right.
Okay.
The flood announcements are getting shorter and shorter every night. I think that's good.
That's a good sign, I think.
We'll try to keep some of those numbers up there, though,
yeah.
from night to night so people know who to call.
Well, the Stanley Cup playoffs are front and center stage tonight. 2 of the game's greatest players were big time tonight. We'll have the highlights for you next. Also, Twins Trivia.
Good evening, and thank you for joining News Center 8 as we bring you continued coverage of the flood of 1997. And we want to welcome our viewers tonight in the Fargo, Bismarck, and Minot areas on the North Dakota ABC network.
And the flood disaster in Grand Forks may cause some big changes in the National Weather Service. On Tuesday, President Clinton told News Center 8 that the government's approach to collecting weather research needs to be looked at.
And many in the Grand Forks area are upset with the National Weather Service and would welcome a review. Austin Schauer has the story.
Prevent the water coming in if it breaks.
For the entire month of April, people in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks worked long hours to prepare for what they thought and had been told to be a 49-foot crest on the Red River. In the week prior to the disastrous flood, the National Weather Service and its hydrologists were unable to accurately predict the crest and what day it would happen. From April 11th to April 14th, the red rose just over 2 feet. The crest prediction was between 49 and 50 feet for April 20th. On Tuesday, April 15th, the river jumped 2 feet. The weather experts stayed with a 50-foot river crest, but moved it back to April 22nd to the 24th. On Wednesday, April 16th, the river again jumped 2 feet to 48.65. The National Weather Service bumped its crest prediction to 50.5 feet for sometime between April 20th and the 22nd. On Thursday, April 17th, the river jumped another 2 feet to 50.86. The National Weather Service, seemingly confused, added another foot to the crest to happen a day or two later. It was on the 17th that cracks in the 40-year-old Lincoln Dike began. Seepage occurred, and the 2 cities were in serious trouble. On Friday, April 18th, a day people in Grand Forks will never forget, the river rose another 2 feet to 52.76. The Lincoln Dike broke, and there was no stopping North Dakota's worst disaster ever. On this day, the National Weather Service issued a new forecast, 54 feet by April 19th. That prediction finally held true, but the crest did not come until yesterday. Many flood victims are upset at the National Weather Service, not so much for missing the prediction, but because they were not given more time to react to the flood.
I took my bike and went over to grab a soda at one of the convenience stores, and I came back and the word was get out. And actually I was lucky I had packed a couple of things, but you know, not near enough of what I need.
They gave warning towards the end, but they should have been more prepared. They know that the floods get bad up here. They got to be ready for anything.
We need to warn people more in advance because they could have moved a lot of furniture out. They could have moved a lot of belongings out. There's many things that could have been done that differently. We probably could have made a smaller, pulled the dike in so we could have saved some of the community, which would have saved an awful lot of money.
President Clinton told News Center 6 that the National Weather Service and its method of collecting weather information will be looked into.
But I mean, like I said, it's not clear that they made a mistake based on their past experience because the weather of the country is changing so much in the last 4 years. So we are going to look at that.
Other weather experts tell us the National Weather Service and its models simply were unable to handle the scope of this flood disaster, and they were unable to gauge the extent of overland flooding. Grand Forks was also a victim of warmer weather, giving little time to react to field runoff. Both the Red and the Red Lake rivers were cresting at the same time, and a large ice jam north of the city caused the river to go up even higher. This final point, the actual crest forecasts are based on computer models located at the regional office of the Weather Service in Chanhassen, Minnesota. Local hydrologists, even if they disagree, are required to use these forecasts exactly. It's similar to the military, where there's protocol and a lot of red tape. It may not be the best system, but for now, it's our only system.
That's Austin Schauer from WDAY in Fargo. The Red River at Grand Forks has dropped about almost 8.5 inches since Monday night. U.S. Geological Survey says the river was at 53.4 or 5 feet late this afternoon. It peaked at 54.1 feet Monday night. Officials say the drop is a good sign, but the unpredictable river could easily rise again. The downtown streets of Grand Forks, the river has dropped 2 to 3 feet in some places, revealing the tops of some fire hydrants. The water has dropped a couple of feet in the southwest part of town, drying out some areas. We know 32nd Avenue South is now dry after having quite a bit of water on it yesterday. Assistant City Engineer Al Grasser says the drop followed the building of a 3/4-mile long dike along South Washington Street. Some of that dike was being removed today to build a similar structure north of Demers. Both of the one south on Washington will stay, but they're using some of that material to build a similar structure farther up on North Washington.
President Clinton may increase his request for supplemental disaster aid for the Dakotas and Minnesota. During a visit to Grand Forks yesterday, the president promised to ask for $200 million more, but South Dakota Senator Tom Daschle says Clinton will increase that request to $500 million. Daschle says $400 million of the total will go into a contingency fund for unspecified purposes, and $100 million would go to a community development block grant program. The money is on top of a request for $288 million that's already been submitted.
Carlson is next.
Grand Forks Mayor Pat Owens says a plan is being put into place to allow people to return to their homes once the water begins to leave their neighborhoods.
And here is what the mayor had to say today about that plan and her thoughts about the weeks ahead.
First, today we are announcing the plans for taking the citizens back into the Grand Forks community to begin assessing damages to their homes and property. I was out at the base all day yesterday, and I've been staying out there, and we know people are very interested in this issue, and there are some questions and rumors circulating about how and when this will happen. I hope this will answer some of the questions our citizens have on this issue. We are still under a 24-hour curfew, which is being enforced by local and state law enforcement officials and monitored at checkpoints by members of the North Dakota National Guard. This system is in place for you to protect the security of your homes and property and to prevent individuals from the many serious dangers related to the flooding, including contaminated water and unsafe public infrastructures. So we ask residents, please do not get disturbed if you are stopped at a checkpoint and told that you cannot enter or have to present your ID or wherever it may be as time goes on and you are allowed to get into your areas. It is for your security only. And we want to make sure that if you have possessions left or anything, that they're still intact when you get there. So please, please, just know this is not any martial law enforcement. It's to keep things in order for you until you are able to evaluate your condition. Our system on that is working well. Problems with criminal property damage or looting are extremely limited, and most importantly, we have been able to maintain our remarkable record of no deaths. And as we're going back in there, please also still be very cautious. Not only is the water still very, very rapidly flowing, however, we will have many health issues to deal with, so be sure that you check out everything you need to know before you go back into your home. We will continue to have this checkpoints in place for the duration of this disaster. However, as waters recede and areas become accessible, citizens living in dry areas will be allowed into their neighborhoods and businesses on a temporary basis to assess property damages, so they can retrieve personal articles and begin cleaning up, repairing, and rebuilding. We are eager to bring the citizens of Grand Forks back into the community. We do not want to lose our population. I know there are some that are frightened that are talking about relocating. I heard a couple on the radio this morning. Join back with us. Help us fight to get back. We can't quit now. We can go ahead, but we need our people, and we will help any of them in any way to get back on their feet. We need more clothing, as everybody does. My 2 pair of jeans, I just keep putting the top one like this, so I wear a different pair every day, and I found something else today, but it's been a real trial for many of us. I said this morning to several of them, you can tell when you're doing really well, when you're shaven and have clean hair and so forth and look like you're put together, because many of us have looked kind of tough over the last few days. My son this morning was laughing because my husband said he hasn't had a hot meal in so long he doesn't know what it is, and my son just said, just be thankful you haven't had to eat any bugs. And I know we need to keep a sense of humor because we are going to have so many low points, and I've had them too, and I've tried to deal with them. And if you need help, we're all here for one another, and I think you just need a hug and say, hey, we're in this together, we'll make it. Just as soon as conditions are safe for people to return, residents, I said, will be allowed back into their neighborhoods. So I think this is putting people in a more positive mood. The thing that I see out at the Grand Forks Air Force Base, and I must say they have been absolutely great. They've opened their hearts to all the people and all across, you know, around in this area, but I just happened to be there. But at the Grand Forks Air Force Base, people are asking all types of questions about, you know, how can we do this and this and this? And I know there are going to be some centers set up where you will have FEMA and so forth, so that, and Red Cross, all different types of things. So listen closely to the news media so you know where those centers are, so that you can check out where you can get all the information. One of the things that people do need to do is register for assistance, and they must do this, and the quicker the better. The number that you call is 1-800-462-9029. And the Emergency Operations Center will be putting forth a press release on what you need to call. I know you need your Social Security number and a lot of personal information, so they will get it out on the TV screens and also into the news media and other ways so that people know what they need before they call. So I'd say give it about a half a day and we should have that out to so you have everything intact. And I guess, like I said, the best thing today is the water is going down. I got my first call this morning. It was about 5 o'clock this morning from our Public Works garage, from our Mike Dorsher, who works out there. I felt like I was right on tack. He said, we're going into one small area that's dry, and garbage service is resuming in that area. And I thought, that's great. That doesn't mean we can go back, but it means there is life after this flood. And just know that we're in there to help carry you through, and we will help one another, and we will make it through. We've had requests and offers of funding and service from all across the community. And I know we are working on getting one established personal assistance fund, and I'm not exactly sure how that will work. It's legally being checked out right now, and I would encourage that this fund be to help people immediately, because there are many of these people that are distressed and they need immediate help. Also, the greatest thing I heard yesterday from our congressional delegation, and Senator Kent Conrad is here this morning, and our president and FEMA, Mr. James Witt, was that we can put up some temporary housing of some sort or another, and if we get numbers soon, we could even have it in place probably as short as about 3 weeks. So people need their privacy. It's great living in bunks, but it's much better when you have, can get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee sometime just by yourself. So that should be in place too. So I just think people be upbeat. Don't get bored. Try to find something to do. Go for a walk. I have a husband, a father, and a son, and a nephew now that I look at every morning. My son went to work today, which I was glad, and they say, what do we do today? And I thought, oh my goodness. So people are bored. They need things to keep busy because we're a hard-working community, and we need to get out there and do something. And they keep looking at me and say, what can we do at the EOC, you know, and it's, so, but in a week or so, we'll have more than we can handle. So I think, you know, just keep the faith and try to keep yourself sane, and we'll get through it. Anyhow, I appreciate this community more than you'll ever know in the region, because in my mind, I sat down last night and reevaluated what's happened, and I can't believe the way the people have responded to the distress that they're going through. They have been super. So I know now that we are strong. So thanks.
And again, to reiterate, the mayor says it has not started yet, that plan to let people back in when the water goes down, but they're working towards that goal. There was some concern that the message was getting out incorrectly. People thought they were already letting people back into their homes. Not the case yet, but hopefully as soon as possible. So,
as you can see, the water is still pretty high in Grand Forks.
Yes, even though it's dropped a little tonight. And we know what happened in Fargo. The river went back down a little, then came back up. It did that in Wahpeton, Breckenridge also. So don't get discouraged if the water goes up again.
Could be a little while
It may
yet.
happen. We don't know.
Well, it appears the worst is over for Grand Forks. Communities downstream are continuing their own battle with the Red River.
And Aaron Quanbeck joins us now to tell us more about the flood fight up north. Aaron?
Well, in Drayton City, leaders with the help of the Army Corps of Engineers are taking unprecedented measures to save the town. Meanwhile, residents are getting one last chance to move out.
As geese return to their northern homes, people living in the Northern Valley are leaving theirs. Drayton residents were given until 8 p.m. Wednesday to pack up their belongings. They were allowed to come back after an emergency evacuation early Tuesday morning.
I think I'll rest better knowing that if it does come up, it won't be all gone.
We're allowing them to get back to do some final moving of personal belongings, and for them to turn off power, to turn off water, or anything else that they want to do in their homes.
But even though all the residents are leaving town, work is continuing on the city's dike system. Crews are using wood with a plastic lining to raise the dike 4 feet, creating an impressive barrier between the town and the rising red.
Corps of Engineers have come up with a name for our dike here, and it's the Great Wall of Drayton. So we are building the Great Wall here. China's got theirs, but we're going to have one too.
Even though the wall is designed to protect the town up to about a 50-foot river level, 1 foot below the projected crest, the city isn't taking any chances with its water plant. Drayton recently spent $2 million to improve it, so it's building another dike around the plant for added protection. Originally, the governor ordered everyone out of town by Wednesday night, but after seeing the work going on here, gave permission for crews to work until the dike is finished or until it's too dangerous for them to continue. Residents say seeing what Grand Forks is going through is motivation enough to keep working.
Their loss, you know, has been the protective thing for us. You know, they lost a lot, and it made us fight harder.
Even further downstream, the city of Pembina is raging its own battle against the red. Most people have left the town, but those who remain are still working and still holding on to the hope that they can hold back the water.
Like everyone living along the Red River, Pembina residents are feeling a sense of urgency as the water continues to rise around their town. With the help of volunteers from outlying communities, they continue to lay sandbags and are adding to the concrete dike that is keeping back the red.
Bolt here holds it together, and that's going to be the crown of the dike. So we're going to have 18 inches of more water leeway. And we got boards cut here. We're going to pound them in, stuff the sandbags in the cracks, and fill her with sand. But we only got like a day to do it.
The deadline workers are trying to beat in Pembina is one that was established today by the governor and county officials. With the exception of a skeleton crew of 25 citizens, everyone must leave Pembina when the river hits 56 feet or when I-29 is inundated to the point where even trucks can't get through. As of Wednesday afternoon, the red in Pembina was just over 53 feet, but the deadline may come quicker because of water over I-29. Just a small portion of dry road remains on the northbound exit. While some support the decision, others feel it's premature.
It's absolutely ridiculous to desert this town and have about $10,000 damage minimum on every house. And that's exactly what we're going to have. It's going to cost another few $1 million to fix this town up when we could save it.
I hope that they just also just, check the road and make sure that if the roads are not blocked, that we can just keep on going. We just want to work as long as possible.
Nobody's giving up in this town. People are fighting to save it. They're working hard. There is no sense in going to a point where people are in danger.
So residents and volunteers keep on working, knowing there's little time to get the dikes as high as they need to be.
I guess I'm just hoping, if it gets as high as they say, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. If it gets to 59 feet or something, you'll never hold it.
But you're still out here working despite
Yeah. Might as well, you always got to have hope.
And Milo and Jane, I think hope is something these residents from both cities have plenty of, working very hard, trying to save their towns. It's really something to see.
Yeah, an incredible effort. It looked like the largest set of hockey boards I've ever seen in Drayton. That incredible Great Wall that they have set up
It is
there.
incredible. It's, I've never seen really anything like it, especially for a small town.
Yeah.
But it really, part of the problem is just getting to these towns now. I-29 is covered in so many different places that you have to divert around, adds miles, and I can tell you a lot of time to the trip.
How much time are we talking about?
Well, at first I went to Pembina, and then I had to backtrack to go to Drayton because I couldn't take I-29 down. So it added a lot of time to the trip.
People have hope that they can pull this off. I suppose they were given a little bit extra time by seeing what happened here that spurred them to action a little quicker, even though their crest predictions have also risen this week. They had a little bit of warning. Does that give them some hope as well?
I think that's a big thing that a lot of people were talking about, is just that they have more time than Grand Forks had. A lot were talking about how Grand Forks residents had to leave so suddenly, but yet they have a bit more time, a bit more warning, and they're taking advantage of it, as you can see, building up those dikes as high as they can.
Has everybody just basically has already moved most of their stuff out of their homes or moved it into the attic, or what?
Well, Drayton residents certainly have. They got that chance. They were under an emergency evacuation a couple nights ago in the middle of the night. I think it was like 3 a.m. But after some discussion with the Corps of Engineers, they were allowed to come back the last couple of days, and as you saw earlier, they were getting furniture, family heirlooms, anything of really importance out. And right now, as of 8 o'clock tonight, they weren't allowed back in town.
It sounds like they're bracing themselves mentally as well, as in addition to bracing the town for the flood too. Like the gentleman that we heard from in the last story saying, well, if it doesn't protect our town, well, we'll just have to accept it.
Well, I think, seeing the video from Grand Forks has put, a lot of fear into some of these people, and they're working feverishly trying to do what they can. But yeah, I'm sure in the back of their minds they're probably telling themselves, this could happen to us too, and trying to prepare for that. One of the things that I really noticed while being in town there is especially in Drayton, I guess this morning they had Good Morning America there, CNN, a lot of different national news media outlets have been in these smaller towns. And usually when I go to, us as out of Grand Forks media go to these towns, sometimes they're maybe a little intimidated by us. But now it's like, hey, we're one of the family. They were very kind and just did everything that they could for us, or for me. I guess I was by myself, but kind of a different
those guys
change.
all have 4 people with them.
Yeah,
A
a guy for sound, a guy, a
producer.
It's an entourage of about 6 people when these national media outlets go on. So a bit different. And one of the things too, you're talking about hope, and today in Drayton, these hats were distributed. A few were given to the mayor. I guess they come from the shirt shop in Grafton. And as you can see, there's a message, Flood Fight 97. People are, I don't know if you can get tight in on that.
Trying to maintain some sense of humor in this.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of people need that right now, is just try to take, one day at a time, and try to keep the hopes up, and really try to get through this. And I think as more of these communities battle, Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, Drayton, Pembina, they're all going through the same thing, and I think it's really bringing the communities together too.
You mentioned that people from outside their communities were coming in to help them. Do you know if any of those people were evacuees from Grand Forks? Wanted something to do, wanted to help? And
I know, I've talked to some that were. People evacuated from Grand Forks don't want this to happen to other communities. They're going out, pitching in, doing what they can, and it's really something to see. And also, but also you got to mention communities like Cavalier, other ones from around the area are coming in, Walhalla, wherever. I think they're pitching in as well, trying to help these people out. So.
Okay, thanks a lot, Aaron, for your reports tonight.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Well, the floodwaters that have submerged much of North Dakota are now on their way to Canada.
CTV's Mark Sykstrom reports on the preparations there.
It's a scene being repeated all across southern Manitoba. People loading cars and trucks with flood-threatened items.
I just came in from Winnipeg to help. Well, my grandma needed some heirlooms moved, so.
We're just taking essentials out for now, and we'll move them back if need be.
Work to strengthen and heighten dikes around towns like Morris continues at a feverish pace. And around farms and private homes, volunteers are pitching in to build temporary dikes.
How does this compare to a school day? It's a lot harder, but I don't know, it's kind of good. Everybody's out here working hard. It's feeling good right now, just like a day at the gym.
The water has already risen past last year's flood levels. To give you an idea just how high that is, that treehouse behind me is normally 20 feet off the ground. The military has moved in about 1,500 troops, and in addition to sandbagging, they're providing communications and other support to local authorities. Staying on the air is becoming a challenge for local broadcasters as well. Most radio and TV transmitters are in the floodplain.
They're predicting them to come up to about this high, the peak. So obviously, as you can look inside there, there's components and stuff that would get covered by the water, and that would put us off the air.
As worried as Manitobans are, the flood threat has not created any panic yet. Flood preparations have been going on for weeks, and the evacuation is proceeding in an organized and orderly fashion. Mark Sykstrom, CTV News, near Morris, Manitoba.
The Nelson County Emergency Manager says overland flooding has increased across the southern half of that county. People in the Tolna and Mackville areas say overland flooding is moving into areas where it hasn't occurred before. There are also reports of water flowing out of Stump Lake and crossing State Highway 1. The overland flooding is adding additional water to the already swollen Cheyenne River, and increased river levels can be expected along the Cheyenne River as it flows into Lake Ashtabula.
President of the Red Cross, Elizabeth Dole, toured Grand Forks today. Coast Guard took Dole and First Lady of North Dakota, Nancy Schaefer, downtown to see some of the damage to our community. Red Cross volunteers are helping people displaced by the flood with supplies, shelter, food, mental health counseling, and other services.
People hear about their experiences, what their needs are, what else we can do to help, really assess our all of our activities. And, of course, talk with our volunteers and our paid staff as well.
And Mrs. Dole was scheduled to tour the shelters at the Air Force Base this afternoon and then leave town at around 6. Dole encouraged his people to donate to the Red Cross at 1-800-HELP-NOW. With the flood evacuation of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, the population of some neighboring communities has increased accordingly.
And as Terry Doolin reviews the situation in one such town, Larimore.
The pace is fast and furious in Larimore these days, ever since the flood evacuation. Normally a community of 1,500, Larimore's mayor says the population of his town has now doubled, at least.
The population of Larimore has gone from 1,500 probably to 3,000 to 3,500 right now at this moment.
So many people have come to town, the traffic has been affected. They've had to add 4 stop signs to handle it all.
Oh, okay. Let me give you a different number.
Larimore is now the Grand Forks County seat after commissioners voted to move its entire operation here, a first in county history. Even a makeshift county jail may be established here at the city's water treatment plant. Meanwhile, fire trucks have been moved out to make way for a clothing giveaway. Council chambers have been turned into a food pantry, and volunteers are preparing 3 meals a day for evacuees. All of it being done on Larimore's own initiative.
Doing our best to help anybody and everybody that needs help.
The Larimore High School gymnasium is now Tufty Manor after its residents and staff were relocated here. And once Father Roman Ludwig was the only priest in town. Now he's joined by at least 5 others.
Well, there would be all the pastors of Grand Forks, and that would be about a total of 5, 6.
One of many communities doing its best to reach out in a time of dire need. Terry Doolum, WDAZ News, Center 8, Grand Forks.
And the Grand Forks County Courthouse has relocated to Larimore as well. Grand Forks attorneys and court cases are getting a 2-month break on their deadlines. Today, the North Dakota Supreme Court issued an emergency order. It applies to cases filed in Grand Forks and attorneys who have their offices there. It also affects any North Dakota case involving a resident of Grand Forks and deadlines for filing civil lawsuits.
UND President Ken Baker is offering the university as a place for people from flooded Grand Forks to live while they get their homes back in order. He says UND could support about 5,000 people. Baker says it's on the western edge, of course, and is relatively undamaged by flooding. Baker says UND can provide housing, space for business, and even daycare.
And many flood victims will get a temporary reprieve, meeting some of their most nagging responsibilities, those bills and loans. Some banks and utilities have announced special measures to aid people who have been displaced and lost their jobs in the Red River disaster. Northern States Power Company has temporarily suspended its bills in the Grand Forks community. The community includes 24,000 electric customers and 11,500 gas customers. Public Relations Coordinator Bonnie Lund says the bills will be sent when things are put back in order. Some local banks are either deferring interest and principal on some consumer loans or raised credit card limits by $500.
And the Grand Forks Post Office will reopen tomorrow afternoon at its main office on 28th Avenue South. Starting at noon tomorrow, you can start picking up your mail there. The post office had to move to the Grand Forks Air Force Base temporarily because of the flood, and there were long lines today to get mail. The offices will be shut down tomorrow, though, as was the case at the temporary post office. You will need proper identification to get your mail. Customers who had post office boxes at the City Center Mall will receive new boxes at the main post office. Keys will be issued when customers pick up their mail. As we know, the Crookston Post Office was handling East Grand Forks mail. We have not heard from East Grand Forks what their situation is. Obviously, their post office has taken on more water. Grand Forks' post office in the southwestern part of town was not in any flood danger during all of this. East Grand Forks people are picking up their mail over in Crookston.
The Red River has flooded out school in 2 hard-hit cities. Grand Forks and East Grand Forks are ending their school years more than a month early. Officials in East Grand Forks say it might be June before some of the schools are fit to use again, so there's no point trying to finish out the year. Grand Forks Superintendent of Schools Mark Sanford says graduation will still be held on May 25th, but the location is still uncertain. In addition, Sanford says the state will provide basic financial support for the school district to get the schools operating as soon as possible. Sanford hopes the district will be able to offer a modified summer school program. The closure does not pertain to the Grand Forks Air Force Base. Stillwater, Minnesota is inviting students and staff from flooded East Grand Forks High School to move in and finish the school year. Principal Chuck Briscoe says students and the community have pitched in to sandbag and load semis of supplies for food for flood victims in the Red River Valley, but he says they want to do more for the students. Stillwater High has 2,100 students in grades 10 through 12. Briscoe says it would be a tight squeeze, but there is room at the school for 400 to 500 students and staff from East Grand Forks. And in Aberdeen, South Dakota, the school district is also making room for a few extra students. Superintendent Robert Neely says the district is opening its doors to North Dakota families who have been driven out of their homes by flooding. He says it's important for those students to be able to continue their education. Neely says flooded families who came to live with relatives in Aberdeen asked him about the possibility of their kids going to school. And while he admits the open door policy is a little unusual, he says people do what they have to do in an emergency.
And Jane, we had the mayor on earlier from the 11 o'clock press conference this morning. We ran most of her talk at that. She said they were trying to implement a plan, and we said it's not in place yet. Well, it is now. As of 10:15, a press release from the Emergency Management Office for a small portion of the area that was under mandatory evacuation, and it will only be for this area. It's south of 13th Avenue South, and then bordered on the east by South Washington. That area all the way down to 32nd and over to Columbia has been in the mandatory evacuation zone. People who live in that area tomorrow and Friday will be allowed into their homes. They'll have limited access to go into their homes and assess the damage. The hours for that will be from noon until 4 p.m. So if you live in the evacuation zone that was south of 13th Avenue South and west of South Washington Street, then you will be allowed into your homes. We are in this area, and we have seen the water go down slightly, so that must be the reason for that. They've decided that people can move back into those areas. The small part of the city, I guess that's one small step, and maybe you can give them the rest of those details and catch my breath.
Okay, well, again, as you enter these checkpoints, you're going to have to go through a checkpoint. You'll be issued vehicle passes for the day and for the time period, and additional guidelines will also be issued as you enter the checkpoints. And all residents will be required to leave the area by 4 p.m. Again, being able to get into your house to inspect the damage, I don't believe you'd be able to do a lot of moving of any personal items during that time that you are able to get into your home.
Might get a chance to, if your clothes are dry, you might be able to grab a few of those items, but something, it's at least something to hold on to. Well, stay with us. Our special flood coverage continues next on News Center 8.
What do parents say about Shriners Hospitals?
My boy was slowly losing the use of his leg, and I went to several national organizations, and they all turned me down. To this day, I thank the Lord for Shriners. I see them in the parade, and I get a lump in my throat, and I feel like saluting the entire organization. These people are so caring. Their staff at the hospital is unequal to any I've ever seen. I don't care if you're black, brown, born in Mexico or in Africa. They don't ask where you're from. They merely say, what can I do for you?
Shriners Hospitals, providing free expert medical care to children with orthopedic and burn problems. For information, call this toll-free number.
We've had so much concentration on our own flood woes here. We'd like to try and bring you up to date on what has happened to our north as the floodwaters have receded. And for the first time in more than 2 weeks, students at Oak Grove High School in Fargo went back to their classrooms today.
And that school was forced to close after being hit hard by the flood. For now, the Oak Grove students have a new home at Concordia College. Jim Shaw reports.
After being away from school for more than 2 weeks, it was nice for Oak Grove students to be back in the classroom. It was not completely smooth sailing, as leaving their flood-ravaged school posed some difficulties.
How many lost their books still in the school? We're in trouble that way. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, because I didn't lose my notes.
It's been a tough ordeal for these students. They worked so hard to protect their school, only to have it devoured by the flood. But they're grateful that Concordia College has opened its doors to them.
Well, I think it's great. It's a positive feeling, and I'm just glad to be back.
Well, I just think it's really exciting. I think it'll be a really fun and new experience. I think it's great. I'm really excited. I feel like a college student already.
At an emotional all-school chapel service, the Oak Grove students were welcomed to Concordia with open arms.
We're also glad you're here because of your remarkable spirit. You lose your school, but not without a fight. And your spirit and your perseverance and coming together again in a new place, but the same family and the same connection, we admire that. The least we can do is share with you our space, and we do so gladly.
Those from Oak Grove felt at home.
You have not only made space available on the campus, Concordia has really given us muscle power for mission.
Oak Grove is still surrounded by deep, thick, dirty water. Reminders from that scary night when the dike broke. The once bustling hallways are now dark and quiet. The gym suffered the worst damage. The floor is so warped it looks like a series of hills. In the library, they're hoping to salvage as many books as possible. Students from Hillcrest Lutheran Academy in Fergus Falls are carrying the books into a portable freezer, hoping that will prevent them from becoming mildewed. Damage at the school could be $750,000, and a fund drive will be started. But the plan is to reopen in the fall. Reopening this school is an enormous challenge, but there is a fierce determination here that even the worst disaster in state history won't stop them.
Well, the Greater Grand Forks flood fight has been featured quite a bit on ABC's Good Morning America.
Here's a segment that ran early this morning.
As you heard in the news, 90% of Grand Forks, North Dakota remains underwater. The Red River has literally taken over the city and much of the flatland surrounding it. The water is still rising downriver, where now many communities are preparing for the worst. The town of Drayton lies 45 miles north of Grand Forks, and that is where our Carol Lynn is located this morning. Carol, good morning.
Good morning, Joan. Behind me, you actually